to enhance the message. Valparaiso's old jail museum held inmates for about 100 years until the 1970s. Many of these inmates and the past residents are still lurking in ghostly form in dark cells, random hallways, and in the former bedroom of the sheriff and his family. Join us as we explore a few stories of this majestic structure. Let's welcome Mike McDowell, Ghost Stories of the Old Jail Museum of Valparaiso. Ghost Stories of the Old Jail Museum of Valparaiso. Mike McDowell.
Just a minor correction is speech number 5, body language. That's okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on what speech I was actually doing here. Everett Daniels, USA Army. Everett Daniels, USA Army. Toastmaster, Madam Toastmaster, Toastmasters, imagine finding yourself in a darkened hallway and using a tape recorder and asking in semblance a invisible being what their name was and actually getting a response. As spooky as that may sound, as shuddering as it may be, that has happened to me at the Valparaiso Old Jail Museum. It is one of these terrific places that was built in Porter County, started as a mansion, was converted over from a home into the jail in 1873, and was in operation for about 100 years there in Valparaiso, seeing rapists and murderers and all sorts of riffraff from Porter County's history all assemble in one place. And some of those still linger within. I started a group called the Indiana Ghost Trackers in August of 2000, and we were looking into hauntings in Northwest Indiana. When we heard about the Valparaiso Old Jail Museum, we began to make regular visits to see what kind of evidence we might be able to find at the jail. As we began our investigations, we found out that the ladies there at the museum were very frightened about staying after dark because of the experiences that they would have. So one of our first nights that we stayed there overnight, our group went in. It was about a dozen of us, and we split up into different groups throughout the building. Right around 12 o'clock at night, I found myself in the upstairs in an old solitary confinement cell, 10 foot by 10 foot, with 3 other investigators that were with me. We went in, we shut the door, we turned off the lights, and we began to record. Now, as we began to record, we were asking questions of the spirits that were there. And we felt, after a short time, that something was there with us as the goosebumps went up and down our skin, as we felt something brush against the back of our neck. We had this sensation that something was there. Have you ever felt this before, where something feels like it's behind you when you turn and look, and there's nothing there? We were only in here for a few minutes, folks, when all this was occurring, and we were using a device called an EMF meter, which would detect ghostly presences. The EMF meter, after just a minute or so, began to go off. The lights were going off. Much like the TV so Supernatural, the lights were going off, and we felt as if there was something in there with us. So as we got near the end of when we were going to stop recording, it was near Christmas, I said, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I hope you'll wish us one in return. Thank you. And I turned off the recorder. And we all looked at each other in this darkened room. And we said, let's listen and see what we got. So we crowded around the recorder, all 4 of us, listening intently to hear what might be there. And as we pressed the play button and listened back, we were listening intensely, because when we get these ghost voices, they're often very, very faint and hard to hear. And when we got to the end of that recording, when I said, I want to wish you Merry Christmas, thank you, we heard a whispery voice say, "Thank you." And another voice, very, very loudly said, "Shut the hell up." It frightened us all so bad, we jumped. I threw that tape recorder on top of the table in front of me. Boom! It was down on top of the table. And after a moment, we all started laughing at each other because it was one of the coolest things that had happened to us. But we had to laugh at ourselves for our fright and how silly we were because there was nothing there in front of us, yet we got this very clear audible recording. Now later that night I decided I was going to try and sleep in that cell with a couple of gals. We were going to stake out the cell at 3 o'clock in the morning and wait and see what happened. This is what ghost hunters do. We're crazy like this. Most people, they would go home. As we're in our cell, I'm laying on a mat on the floor. 2 girls were laying on either side of this room in cots. After a short time, the one girl would say, "Did you hear that?" I'd say, "I didn't hear anything." The girl on the other side would say, "Did you hear that?" She'd say, "I didn't hear anything." And I said, "What are you hearing?" "This is a whispery man's voice." And after a moment, they both agreed that the man was saying, "Anne Marie." I wasn't hearing anything. It seemed to stop for a few moments. And then both girls screamed, bolt upright in their cots, screamed at the same time. So, "What are you screaming about?" They said, "Didn't you hear it?" I said, "I didn't hear anything." This voice just yelled, "Anne Marie!" They were frightened, but so excited they ran downstairs to tell everybody. And I said, "You know what? I didn't hear anything. Maybe there was something there. I didn't hear anything. Maybe they're imagining this. Could it have been their imagination? Could it have been? I don't know." So I laid back down on the floor. As I'm laying there, I began to feel something on my throat. And as I laid there and felt this, it felt more and more like a hand on my throat. And I said, "It's my imagination playing tricks on me." And then it felt as if the fingers were tightening, getting tighter on my throat. And after a moment, I stood up and said, "Okay, you win. I'm out." So I left the solitary confinement room. Folks, back to the beginning of my story tonight, Everett Daniels, USA Army. That name was verified by the museum staff. Unbeknownst to me, he was a soldier in the U.S. Army previous to World War I, lived in Porter County, Indiana, and some of his possessions were donated to the museum of Porter County, Indiana. And where do you suppose I was when I captured that recording? In the hallway next to the old Army uniforms hanging in the museum. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, thank you.